Hello everyone, today we're going to speak about self-sabotage. What is it, how it shows up in your life, where it comes from, and how to navigate it. A really practical guide. Consider it your self-sabotage 101 course. If you don't know me, my name is Chrisana, I'm a life psychologist and a transformative life coach with a psychotherapeutic and psychological approach. Without further ado, let's get into the video. I think it would be really beneficial to start with when does self-sabotage show up in our lives? Usually it shows up when we are going through a big transition in our lives. So when we are entering this realm of unknown, when we might be pursuing a new relationship, maybe we are entering marriage, maybe we are moving to a new country, maybe we are pursuing a new career, maybe we are starting a new creative project, maybe we are pursuing a new identity. This transition can show up in so many different ways. Sometimes it's even so much more subtle, like when we are pursuing self-development, and that ties to our self-identity. And the reason for that is because we all have some unconscious beliefs that drive our actions, our behaviors in life. When we're entering something new, when we're entering a new chapter in our lives, those unconscious forces, those unconscious beliefs get activated because they think they don't align with our current new reality. So what are they gonna do? They're gonna show up as self-sabotage. Psychodynamically, they show up through these defense mechanisms. This can be projection, this can be denial, this can be transference, can show up in so many ways. Self-sabotage shows up through the activation of the sympathetic nervous system response. So they can be fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Now, why that happens? Why do those activations show up? Because we consciously want this new change, right? It's so exciting to go through new phases in our lives. Because those unconscious beliefs are still in the unconscious. We could say that they didn't catch up yet to this new chapter in your life. So what are they gonna do? They're gonna activate those responses, those defense mechanisms, those nervous system responses, so they can bring you back to the old belief, to the old identity, to the old life. It's also because our psyche is built this way to protect us. So when we are entering something unknown, something that is undiscovered to our psyche, we don't know how it's gonna unfold. Literally, to our psyche, that means death, because it's something unexplored. It's something we don't know unconsciously how it's gonna be unfolded in our lives. So that's why it activates all of those responses, so it can protect us. And to the unconscious, to the psyche, it's a matter of survival. If we see this response as a protective mechanism, as something that is literally built within us to protect us, we can also see it from a compassionate perspective. We don't have to judge it or shame it. And let me tell you, shaming and judging, it's another subtle self-sabotaging behavior. But it's more internal, so it's incredibly subtle. So when we understand this mechanism, our system, how is it built, we can have so much more compassion towards ourselves, especially when we are going through big changes. It's also an invitation to explore those unconscious beliefs. It's also an invitation to allow ourselves to explore those hidden unconscious beliefs, those hidden unconscious patterns that were driving our life so far. So self-sabotage can be an opportunity to learn more about yourself, to perhaps learn more about your family dynamics. Maybe in your life you are entering a new career. This career is something that nobody in your family has ever done before. It's a completely different path. So what happens when you are succeeding in this career, when you are about to succeed? Self-sabotage is going to be activated. This is why you might have unconscious loyalty towards your family perceptions in life and choices. You might be thinking to yourself, I always wanted to be there. I don't know what's going on. Why did I do this thing and now I didn't get this opportunity? But this is the reason. It's because we unconsciously are so loyal to our family's dynamics, to our family's perceptions in life. When that happens, it requires a lot of untangling. Because if we don't go to the root of this self-sabotaging behavior, we're going to keep perpetuating the same cycle again and again and again. We're going to keep ourselves stuck in those old narratives, in those old cycles. Chances are we're not going to give ourselves the chance to have this exciting new career. Another thing that happens is that this new chapter is being seen as uncertainty from our system, is being perceived as a threat. That's why our system is trying to protect us. It perceives this unknown, this uncertainty as threat, as danger, as literal death. So that's why it comes in order to give us a chance to survive. There's a phrase that ties perfectly to this. It says that our system, our mind, is always gonna prefer a familiar hell to an unfamiliar heaven. That's exactly what happens when we are self-sabotaging. We are going back to the old patterns, back to the old life, so we are not in danger, because our system thinks we're in danger. So how it shows up, what are the behaviors of self-sabotage? It shows up as perfectionism, as procrastination, as self-criticism, as I said, as people-pleasing, as self-neglect. There's also relational self-sabotage. So maybe if you're a woman, you're being pursued by a man that it seems kind, compassionate, caring. You don't want to keep dating him because you think it's boring. But the reality is you're not used to a healthy dynamic and you are self-sabotaging because this is really unfamiliar. This is something unknown. It's something you haven't experienced yet. And so many other ways. Some people might prematurely end their relationships without having discussed some solutions to their problems because they might be possibly avoidant, and this is their way of not being abandoned as they have been possibly in their childhood. So what do? They abandon first the other person. They reject the other person before they can be rejected. The root of those behaviors lies usually in the childhood, in our early experiences, in our formative experiences that can be woundings of abandonment, of neglect, of even abuse, of a lot of trauma. It can be so many different reasons. The motivation for self-sabotaging behaviors is to keep a psychological homeostasis. So it's trying to recalibrate to its balance, to its known balance, because again, it's entering something unknown. So it needs to go back to the old ways, to the old behaviors, so it can restore balance inside. And that happens for safety and security reasons. It thinks this is how we are safe, this is how we are secure. So what does it do? It goes back to the old ways of being. Maybe you want to start working out 5 times per week. It's the first time you are doing something like that in your life. You don't consider yourself to being the athletic type, the type who is working out, and you're bored. You don't want to go to the gym. You are binge eating. And basically, you are self-sabotaging the whole process because your self-identity is not caught up to the identity of an athletic person who is this gym type of person who is obsessed with working out. And that is literal resistance to change. That is why self-sabotage is showing up. It's resisting the new change because it's unfamiliar, so it's unsafe. And that is why self-sabotage is activated. This resistance shows up because something unsafe is happening in our lives, and self-sabotage is going to restore this balance within us. So I have a story of this. When I moved to London a few years ago, and I was so excited for this new beginning. I was ready to create new experiences with people in my academic environment, pursuing my master's. I was so excited. But at the same time, I was the first in my family to do something like that. I was the first in my family to have a master's degree and do that in another country. So I was also experiencing this overwhelming anxiety. There was was a big internal conflict in my life. I was unconsciously being filled with guilt because nobody in my family has done that before. Even though I loved what I was studying, I was obsessed. Everything I studied, I am obsessed. I love studying. I read every single day on the topics I am obsessed with, which you might have guessed, it's psychology, psychotherapy, coaching, all of that kind of stuff. So I was obsessed with the subject. And I was finding myself procrastinating so much. I was late for my assessments. I was doing everything last minute. When I was at the library, I was scrolling on my phone. And that was because I was filled with this guilt, with this shame, because I had so much unconscious loyalty to my family choices, my family's background in terms of career. What I was doing, I was self-sabotaging my own development, my own academic development, because nobody in my family has done that before. I remember being in therapy, really untangling those self-sabotaging behaviors. And when we take the time to untangle those self-sabotaging behaviors, truly understand where they come from in terms of our own individual history, we are freeing ourselves from those shackles of identifying with old narratives, with old identities, with old unspoken rules about life. When that happens, it's one of the most liberating experiences we can have in our lives. So yeah, if you're going through self-sabotage, really give yourself some space to reflect and understand your family history, your family dynamics, your family's unspoken rules. And what's your relationship to that? What can you do to both have a relationship with your family? Now, I'm not speaking about cases of abuse, that's different. And establish some boundaries for your individuality, for your own agency. Another thing that is incredibly important in terms of self-sabotage is when we experience a lot of conflict within ourselves. Maybe we are being met with indecision. That's also a subtle sign of self-sabotage. What might be happening is that we might have a part of ourselves that is loyal to some unspoken rules, to some expectations, and to some roles we were raised with, or some other expectations we established through our social environment. It doesn't always have to be your family dynamics, but in most of the cases, this is what is happening. This conflict, it can arise from the part of us who wants to move on, and from the other part of us that stays loyal to this old narrative, to this old expectation from life. So indecision is one of those ways that we need to look out for, because it can be so subtle. It can create a lot of other self-sabotaging behaviors. Get stuck in this loop of self-sabotaging in a lot of different ways. So for example, perfectionism shows up usually with procrastination and with self-criticism. It becomes a loop we're going through again and again and again until we address this behavior and process it. Because if we don't, we're going to stay stuck in this loop. We might even not accomplish our new goals. That creates so much distrust within ourselves. We might lose confidence within ourselves, because a lot of those behaviors stem from low self-worth. Maybe we believe we don't deserve a lot of things, especially those things we are pursuing in our lives right now. And when that happens, our system is gonna keep us stuck in this self-sabotaging loop. The result of this self-sabotaging loop is that we're gonna lose confidence, we're gonna lose trust within ourselves. Our self-esteem is gonna suffer because of this. Then what happens? We get disappointed with ourselves because we didn't do what we said to ourselves that we're gonna do. But self-esteem, it's a whole another conversation on its own. When we are being met with resistance, which then leads to self-sabotage, we need to truly pay attention to our thoughts. What are we thinking about? And this can be a bit tricky because it's so unconscious. We might need the help of a professional. Whatever we think it's going to happen unconsciously, it's gonna happen. And that's called self-fulfilling prophecy. Maybe in our last job, we were in an unhealthy environment where we were not being seen, we were not being heard, our ideas were dismissed. Other people tried to micromanage us, met with a lot of control. When we are searching a new job and we are in this thought pattern of thinking, oh my God, how I am ever gonna get a better job? Shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be searching for a new job. All the jobs out there, they're doing the same thing. They're trying to control you. They dismiss you. They don't really see you for who you are. They're trying to tell you to be someone else, and yada, 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 yada. This is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because when we're thinking this way, we are setting the unconscious expectation in our minds that this is what's going to happen. And guess what? This is what's going to happen, because this is what we are telling unconsciously to ourselves that it's going to happen, which is a bit tricky to really pay attention to. But once you catch it the first time, then you're good. It's going to become easier and easier to catch that self-fulfilling prophecy, this thought, and actively change it. So you don't have to deal with the same old patterns again and again. Another thing you can do is to actively ask yourself, what is the payoff of this destructive behavior? What does it give me? And that is a bit subtle. It might be that you're in a relationship that you don't have true intimacy and true emotional connection. And you might be staying in this relationship by saying to yourself unconsciously, that happens unconsciously again, that you're not going to find anyone better, and it's better to have some breadcrumbs of emotional intimacy, I would argue fake connection, than to actively deal with this situation and break off this relationship that doesn't fulfill your needs, be straightforward and kind at the same time, move on with your life, and then seek a new relationship that fulfills your need for deep emotional intimacy. So the payoff might be extremely subtle, but it's incredibly important to understand the payoff, because if we don't understand the payoff, chances are we're gonna get stuck in this self-sabotaging pattern in this life that doesn't serve us anymore, in which we are incredibly unhappy. This is the last piece I'm gonna offer. I think a really big step of this process that a lot of people don't talk about is accepting self-sabotage as it is. Accepting that in new chapters of our lives, in big transitions, self-sabotage is going to show up. But it's going to show up as a sign, as a messenger of the old narrative, of the old belief. And that makes it so much more easier to work with self-sabotage instead of shame it and criticize it, because you can see that shaming it and criticizing the self for this destructive behavior, it's also another form of self-sabotage. So we cannot deal with self-sabotage by self-sabotaging the self-sabotage, if that makes sense. We need to be able to accept it as a natural reaction to new chapters and big transitions, and then work with it instead of against it. Work through it, process it, befriend it, make it a normal part of a big transition. And that is such a big key. What happens is that when we accept it, it naturally melts. Chances are it's not going to disrupt, and that's the paradox. It melts away when we accept it. From this place, we can work with it. From this place, we can allow it to be as it is instead of change it. And the paradox is that this is the moment it changes, because we accepted it. Sometimes we don't even need to do anything besides accepting it. Sometimes it just melts away. Sometimes it's just being processed on its own because it is being understood. It's like a part of yourself that it needs some attention, and you're giving it to it. So when you give this attention to this part of yourself, to this self-sabotaging and self-destructive part of yourself, you're instantly stopping this behavior, because you are giving it the care and affection that it didn't get in your childhood. So this was the video on self-sabotage. I will probably do some more on this theme, because I think there's so much more to be said in terms of self-sabotage. So if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. I would love to know what you think. What might be some self-destructive behaviors that you're working on right now? And if you need more help with this, I have the Psychological Breakthrough Bundle, which is 3 sessions in which we dedicate our time to one survival strategy. We decode it, we rewire it, and then we are getting you in a place in life where you are being resourced with new tools that are going to stay with you for your whole life. And more confidence, more self-awareness, more self-reflection, being able to deal with this destructive pattern on your own, being able to lead yourself from a place of authenticity. So if you're interested, I will leave the link down below. If you're not ready yet, I totally get it. That's why I created the free Inner Child Healing Masterclass, in which I walk you through the 5 steps you need to heal your inner child. So if you're interested in this, I will also link that below, and I will see you soon.